Blitz Esports releases new videos every week. Subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss out. Tilted Towers. It's this New York City-esque cluster of big buildings smack dab in the center of the map, and it's filled with a ton of goodies. And in almost every game, it attracts half the battle bus like flies to honey. But when you get a bunch of players crammed into a 1x1 square of the map, chaos is inevitable. For many players, the seemingly unpredictable chaos of Tilted Towers is enough to steer them away from the area altogether. Why risk an early death in a chaotic meat grinder? But for a select few, the hordes of loot hunters and dense urban terrain aren't unpredictable factors to be avoided. Instead, they see them as reliable paths to victory.
Easy baits. Boom, boom.
Pro players like NICKMERCS and Aydan are two of the most aggressive fraggers in the game, and they're notorious for almost always dropping Tilted Towers. For most of us, dropping Tilted is a death wish. But for Nick and Aydan, they're the ones writing the death notes. So why do two of the world's best Fortnite players drop into the game's most contested area over and over again? And how are they so good at cleaning the place up?
Before we get started, check out our new kill tracker and leaderboard, the only app that tells you if you've killed a streamer or a mobile, and gives live updates on who's getting all the kills in your game, all in real time, totally lag-free. You can check it out right here.
First, if you want to dominate a drop zone, you've got to be super familiar with it. The best way to do that is to drop there over and over again until you know the entire area like the back of your hand. Nick and Aydan have dropped into Tilted Towers thousands of times, but what made them start doing so? Instead of just winning regular games over and over again, Nick and Aydan spend much of their time playing in Fortnite tournaments. Most of these competitions reward high eliminations, so it makes a lot of sense for them to drop on the most crowded spot on the map to score the most potential eliminations. Tilted Tower's central location on the map also makes it easier to reposition to where the safe zone moves next and cut off even more players as they rotate in from other areas.
Hey man, the one thing about Tilted that nobody ever talks about is that shit is right in the center of the fucking map, bruh. So more often than not, the rotation is not going to be very hard.
But simply being in a crowded spot doesn't guarantee you any kills. Just as you have the potential to eliminate a bunch of players have the potential to eliminate you. But that's where Nick and Aydan's familiarity pay off. Where does all the loot spawn? Where's the best place to farm materials? What are the most popular buildings that players hit? Knowing these basic details of an area buys you precious extra time in the early game, and that can be crucial to winning your first gunfights. Nick and Aydan have dropped Tilted enough times to the point where they have the entire area memorized. Generally, when you land, the first thing you want to do is find a gun. Picking an area dense in loot and chest spawn points gives you the most possible chances of securing a gun. Plus, if you land close to someone else, but you're closer to more loot points, you should theoretically have better gear for the fight. Don't waste time backtracking or ping-ponging from point to point. Set a looting path that minimizes any backtracking you have to do so you can pick up all the loot in the area in a single sweep. Time is precious in the early game. A few wasted seconds can mean the difference of entering a fight with or without shields or a key weapon. Being familiar with an area also means memorizing the terrain. Where's the best building to hide in? What are the escape routes? Where's the highest natural vantage point in the area? But who are you exposed to up there? Properly adapting your combat based on your location is crucial. Winning gunfights in Fortnite is less about hitting your own shots and more about dodging enemy shots. Nick and Aydan are experts at using the natural terrain to shift gunfights in their favor. If a fight's looking bad for them, they'll completely disengage to look for a new angle where they have the advantage. They want to fight on their terms, not yours. Knowing the natural routes you can take to regain the angle in a fight is a valuable skill you gain by becoming very familiar with the drop zone, and you can bet that Nick and Aydan know them all by heart. But even still, beyond the map knowledge they've gained through hundreds of tournaments, there's another factor that speaks to how Tilted Towers is a natural home for players like Nick and Aydan. When you're fighting in and around buildings, your ability to build is more restricted. And since your pathing's a lot more limited, your movement's far more predictable. You've got to make do with what you've got, something Nick and Aydan are very used to. While most Fortnite pros play on a mouse and keyboard, Nick and Aydan are among the few who use controllers. At the end of the day, you should play with whatever you're most comfortable with. But there are certain in-game actions that are objectively more complicated with a controller compared to a mouse and keyboard. Building being one of them. But when you can't even build much in Tilted Towers to begin with, it becomes far less of a problem. The actual placement of a building with a controller is the easy part. The hard part is turning to where you want to actually put it. When turning with analog sticks, the speed at which you turn has a max cap, meaning no matter how hard you slam your stick, you won't go faster beyond a certain point. However, with a mouse, your turn speed is theoretically only limited by the speed of your hand in real life. You can crank up your analog sensitivity for quicker turn speeds, but your overall accuracy will probably suffer, since it's harder to make precise aim adjustments on a high sense. Since Tilted Towers has so many buildings you can use for cover, there's less of a need to build, thus decreasing the edge that keyboard mice users have in build fight scenarios, especially ones with lots of editing. With a keyboard, starting an edit is instant. As soon as you hit your edit key, you get the edit panel. However, on a controller, you have to hold down the key before you get the panel. While the delay is only 300 milliseconds, it's still infinitely longer than doing it on a keyboard. The longer a build fight goes, the more you start to feel those milliseconds add up. But with Fortnite as chaotic as it is, sometimes just waiting on a single edit can be fatal.
Build as fast as he can. Try to edit out. He went for the edit to back out.
Nick and Aydan's mastery of Tilted Towers makes sense. Their thousands of drops of experience let them casually sweep through the city like a couple of exterminators, with the dense urban terrain naturally complementing the way they play Fortnite. Dropping into hotspots like Tilted can be an unpredictable mess, but by familiarizing yourself with an area through consistent practice and using the natural terrain to stay one step ahead of your opponents in gunfights, you can use the chaos to your advantage and start crushing games like Nick and Aydan.
Dude, it's so good.
Yeah, see you later, baby!
I think I'm gonna die.
Dill?
Yeah?
Right here, dude.
We release new content every single week, so subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss out.